All right, thank you very much. Let's get into our business. Let's get into our news review segment right away this morning. And today we're beginning with myjoyonline.com. Now, top story here says that no one is immune to fraud. Johnny Ward reviews scammers targeted him minutes after live cyber fraud interview. And that is there also. He says that digital trust crisis looming if fraud concerns are ignored. Same man says. Now, this one says that we don't have trust crisis, and this coming from BOG as the edge vigilance against rising digital fraud. Also, this one says that two Ghanaians ask ICC to probe xenophobic violence in South Africa. Also, High Court grants police assistance order for receiver to take possession of Cheddar's number 1 Oxford Street Hotel. And also, Finance Minister to present 2026 media budget review today. And also, financial markets are not for the ignorant. Professor Bokping calls for minimum financial literacy. All right, and so that's that. Now, also, MPC keeps policy rate at 14% and cites inflation risks due to Middle East tensions. Also, two patients exchange blows at a Jisu government hospital and damage computers and equipment. Also, Trump praises Nigeria's effort against violence towards Christians. And also, this one says that oil prices rise to 6-week high as U.S.-Iran tensions escalate. All right, these are some of the stories on myjoyonline.com this morning. Maybe some more stories here. This one says that BOG warns of arrest, imprisonment, and fines for rejecting CD and Peswa coins. Also, business and consumer confidence positive, and that's coming from the Bank of Ghana as well. Also, BOG to sell remaining stakes in ADB and NIB, coming from the same man. And banks NPLs dropped to 16.1%, but credit risk remains key vulnerability, and that is also coming from the Bank of Ghana. GIPC now an authority. Yes, that's also another story there. This morning, let's move on to citynewsroom.com. Now, on citynewsroom.com, Ghanaians lose 296,000 Ghana cedis to online restaurant scams in 6 months. Also, Northern Business Fair 2026 set to boost trade and investment in Tamale. And also, Agric Ministry defense timing of 2026 farm inputs distribution. And all eyes on Finance Minister's media budget today. Now, another news from Afosa sends a delegation to Mahama over South Africa's xenophobic attacks. Also, Suraj denies claims linking Deputy Commissioner to Wontumi sentencing. Also, Ataisa says that media budgets to focus on development and not new taxes. Also, NSA pushes for 1,200 Ghana cedis allowance for service personnel. And these are some of the stories here as well. Maybe some more here. Now, act on xenophobic attacks in South Africa. Mahama tells the AU. Also, explain $1.2 billion reserves decline upon Nkrumah to forcing. And these are all stories making waves this morning on citynewsroom.com. Also, ECOWAS reaffirms plans to launch single currency in 2027. Also, use lawful means to handle illegal migrants, AUC to South Africa. Also, Accra. Also, High Court grants police assistance order for receiver to take possession of Cheddar's number 1 Oxford Street Hotel. Also, police probe officer accused of pulling gun during vehicle towing dispute. All right, so those are all stories making waves on citynewsroom.com. Let's move on to channel1newsonline.com. Now, Northern Business Fair boosted Sagnarigu businesses. MCE says that. Also, Mahama urges AU to act on South Africa's xenophobic attacks. Also, Wontumi in high spirits despite jail term. Baumia spokesperson says that. Now, Ramaphosa sends delegation to Mahama to discuss xenophobic attacks. And also, Baumia calls for NDC organizers' prosecution to be dropped. And also, Ataisa says a flood mitigation to feature prominently in media budget review. And Baumia visits Wontumi at Nsawan prison. Also, SEC blacklists 23 entities operating without license. And NDC suspends Ewutu Senya East Constituency chairman for 5 months. Now, some more news here. Now, Bagwin hails NIB turnaround to at launch of recovery book. And he also says that loss of trust in state institution threatens Ghana's democracy. Now, Musa Dankwa says that visibility boosts NPP's performance ratings, and also NPP accuses government of stalling debt restructuring. And all these are stories here this morning. Let's move on to graphiconline.com. Now, Bawumia urges police and attorney general to drop case against NDC organizer arrested over alleged false publication. Also, MOFA pushes for a Greek extension and advisory services legislation. Also, Vice President engages staff of Registrar of Companies. Now, GTech directs universities to stop using entrance exams as precondition for admission. I see. All right, and this one says that ATU students showcase culinary heritage at Taste of Africa. Also, Unimark Library refurbishes Accra Psychiatric Hospital washroom. Also, Ghana Garden and Flower Show launched. Assemblies of God and Pentecostal Council commiserate with Dagbon. And UNFPA Ghana pledges continued support for adolescent health and empowerment program. Now, KNUST neonatal device wins British Council award. Also, this one says that move beyond pursuit of academic certificates. CEO charges students, and Africa requires 1.4 billion US dollars to contain Ebola in Africa. That is coming from Africa CDC. Now, NSC suspends controversial 60 Ghana cedis deduction, and that is also there this morning. Now, let's move on to bnftonline.com. BOG sees inflation staying within target. Also, reset must hold without a safety net. FMB research head says that. Now, NLA partners Fidelity Bank to boost digital operations. Also, Ahafo and not Premier Bank provides potable water to 4 towns. Also, Stanbic reinforces leadership in private banking. Now, media review, education delivery record under scrutiny. Also, hospitality industry wants next budget to tackle high operating costs. Also, Nestle's Kwabna Adakwa wins global honor for brand management excellence. And these are all stories here on bnftonline.com. Also trending now there. BOG maintains policy rate at 14%. Also, reset must hold without safety. Without a safety net. Okay, I think I read that one already. So these are all some stories here. Now, PwC forecasts 12% policy rate and $1 to 13 Ghana cedis by 2027. Let's move on to the High Street Journal and look at what stories are also here. Now, this one says that audit reviews training gaps hindering Ghana's oil and gas skills development. Also, Ghana must turn creativity into an organized economic sector. And that is coming from Kofi Ochre Dako. And also, end of easy escorts. Interior Ministry puts sand in Gary of roadside police escorts business. And so those are that. Also, Burundian president in Daishimie invites, I hope I got that right, invites Ghanaian investors to explore key growth sectors. Also, Ghana must turn creativity into organized economic sector. Already where there's one. Now, regulatory arbitrage, a major loophole in Ghana's mobile money regulatory system. Now, this one says that BOG increases gold reserves by 3.6 tons in second quarter of 2026. And Bank of Ghana maintains policy rate for the second consecutive time. Now, lending rates drop for 5th month in a row is Dr. Siama's vision for 10% lending rates on course. Now, BOG and Ghana police team up to crack down on illegal rejection of CD coins. And also, this one says that forest carbon could become Ghana's next green economy opportunity, and that is coming from experts. Also, Ghana's trade surplus grows by 4.3 billion US dollars in quarter 2 as exports maintain a lead. And Ghana's public debt rises for the 4th consecutive month to hit 720 billion Ghana cedis and 45.1% of GDP. Also, this one says that rejecting 1 pesewa, 1 Ghana cedis, and 2 cedis coins could land you in jail for up to 3 years, a fine, or both. All right. So, and Transparency International Ghana launches project to strengthen governance of Ghana's forest carbon markets. Also, oil prices jump above $94 as Middle East tensions raise fears of higher fuel costs. All of these are stories on the High Street Journal. Maybe let's move on to the international front now. Now, U.S. Signs landmark nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. Also, This one says that firm hacked by rogue OpenAI model say it's a wake-up call. And also, Indian police cracked down on cockroach protesters, and they went home and made memes about it. Also, Canada's powerful dairy sector in Trump's trade crosshairs, and also Houthis claim attack on oil tankers as U.S. launches more strikes on Iran. These are all stories also on the BBC online.com. Let's move on to BBC Africa. Now, even camels can't cope. Africa's ships of the desert hit by rising temperatures. Also, 2 Russians handed down jail terms for terrorism and spying in Angola. And also, this one says that this one says that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger launch bid for 2032 AFCON. Also, cocaine worth 370 million US dollars seized in Liberia's biggest ever drugs bust. And also, mysterious white foam draws crowds on Nigerian highway. All right, so those are all stories here as well. Or maybe some more here. This one says that Ebola misinformation fuels violent attacks on health workers. Also, Morocco press are disrupted by fighting journalists. All right, so these are all some stories here. So let's move on to CNN. Now, on CNN, Houthis claim Red Sea attacks and threatening new choke points in conflict. Also, France becomes the first EU country to ban social media for children. And also, bodies recovered after passenger ferry carrying over 100 people sinks off Guyana. Now, Moroccan man's death in Italian hospital custody. Italian police custody sparks some violent protest and calls for justice. Now, Nicaragua's Ortega says never again for elections after 2 decades in power. And also, UK politician Anne Whitcomb was struck 21 times with a hammer. Court hears that. Also, Russian warship conducts live fire exercise off UK as new Prime Minister Benham reaffirms support for Kiev. All right, so those are all stories also making waves on the international front, and that's on CNN, and CNN. Now, let's move on to Reuters. Now, Reuters here inside Ukraine's kill zone. All right, and also this one says that Iran strikes on CIA facilities prompts questions about possible Russian role. Also, Houthis strike tankers in Red Sea to enforce blockade against Saudi oil and threat of new choke points in Iran war. Now, 2 Chinese super tankers with Saudi oil head to Bab el Mandeb for Red Sea exit. And also, U.S. House passes $1 trillion US dollar defense bill despite Iran and Israel concerns. Now, Indians Modi promises fast-track courts on exam leaks. Protesters want minister to quit. Also, food fury and supporters near and far keep Indian protest alive. Also, Indian billionaire Adani weighs airline launch that could reshape markets, and sources say that. Also, US says it reaches nuclear power deal with Saudi Arabia. Also, Google increases capex forecast again after cloud-driven quarterly beat. And too many tracks, too many zeros. Army audit drive exposes flaws as Pentagon nears 2028 goal. And also, oil prices hover at 6-week high as Middle East shipping risks escalate. Also, Euro heads for 1-week high ahead of ECB policy direction. And yes, so those are some stories here. Let's look at Reuters Africa now. Now, South African rand steady ahead of key central bank decision. Also, African banks bet on debt guarantees to lure private capital to infrastructure projects. And also, this one says that Asian stocks rise as AI capex ramps up, and oil at 6-week highs. Also, Euro heads for 1-week high ahead of ECB policy decision. Now, oil prices over at 6-week high as Middle East shipping risk escalates. Also, Trump praises Nigeria's effort against violence towards Christians. And also, Ghanaian nationals ask ICC to probe xenophobic violence in South Africa. And Egypt approves oil and gas deals, including Perenco North Sinai project. And Germany vows support for Nigeria on security and seeks expanded economic ties. Also, South African rand holds steady as inflation surprise sharpens focus on rate decision. Now, Cameroon's ruling party meets as BS long absence draws criticisms. All right, so those are all stories there. Now, Morocco, Germany, 30 billion US dollar power cable stalled by governance disagreement. Sources say that also Congo presses ahead with local ownership rule for miners despite industry concerns. And Morocco urges investigation after arrested national dies in Bologna. Now, Congo says nearly 1,000 die of Ebola and confirmed cases rise to 2,473. These are all stories also making waves here. Now let's look at Bloomberg and then we can wrap up with CNBC Africa. Now, on Bloomberg, Houthis say they hit tankers in Red Sea and widening Iran war. Also, this one says that Alphabet's 205 billion US dollar spending target fuels AI cost fears. And also, Airtel Mobile Money unit chooses London for listing location. And also, this one says that EasyJet profit falls 70% amid high fuel cost and lower demand. BT profit falls as lower broadband and voice margins offset cuts. And maybe finally here, Chinese firms help Zimbabwe secure 300 million US dollars for lithium mine. Maybe finally on CNBC Africa, Trump vows to bomb Iran bridges, power plants if it shoots at ships in Hormuz Strait. And also this one says that Cameroon's ruling party meets as BS long absence draws criticism. And South Africa inflation surge sets stage for another rate hike. And also this one says that what Africa builds here, the world will use everywhere. And Trump vows, Ghana Central Bank maintains key rate for second meeting running. And Angola's BFA to join China's CIPS to meet a growing yuan demand, and that's coming from some sources there. And finally, South African retail sales rise 2.3% year on year in the month of May. All right, so those are some stories making waves on the various portals this morning. You can head to www.zmultimedia.com. We've got some more news on that platform, so feel free to head there and you can get to take a read of some of the stories that are making waves as well. All right, so that'll be all for our news review segment this morning. Up next is business news. Please don't go anywhere.
It's now time for the business news coming up in the headlines. MPC maintains policy rate at 14% amid inflation risk. Also coming up, Ghana's public debt rises by 46.7 billion Ghana cedis in 3 months. And the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy says Ghana's physical space still limited despite economic gains. I am Mami Efua Kwejua. We will bring you details of our headlines and other stories shortly. Do stay with us. Thanks for your company. Now to the details of the stories. To our first story, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has unanimously maintained the monetary policy rate at 14%, citing rising external inflation risk despite the continued resilience of the domestic economy. Announcing the decision at the end of the 131st MPC meeting, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, said recent inflation developments remain broadly in line with the bank's forecast, although headline inflation rose in June mainly due to temporary factors. He explained that inflation is gradually moving towards the bank's medium-term target range, while inflation expectations remain largely anchored. According to the committee, the outlook is, however, subject to upside risk, including possible increases in utility tariffs and renewed geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, which have driven up global crude oil prices and heightened uncertainty in international markets. The MPC noted that Ghana's economy remains resilient, supported by strong private sector credit growth, improving business and consumer confidence, a favorable trade balance, and adequate international reserves. The committee added that continued fiscal discipline and the current monetary policy stance are expected to help contain inflationary pressures and preserve macroeconomic stability. The Bank of Ghana says it will continue to monitor global and domestic developments closely to ensure inflation remains under control while supporting sustainable economic growth. Now, the Ghana cedi depreciated by 9.5% against the US dollar in the interbank market during the first 7 months of 2026, according to the Bank of Ghana's latest summary of economic and financial data. The report shows the cedi traded at 11 cedis 55 pesos to $1 in July 2026, compared with 10 cedis 50 pesos during the same period last year. The local currency recorded a steady decline over the period, depreciating by 4.6% in January, 2.2% in February, 5% in March, and 6.6% in April. That depreciation continued in May, June, and July, reflecting sustained pressure in the wholesale foreign exchange market. Despite the losses recorded in the interbank market, the cedi has remained relatively stable in the retail market, appreciating by about 0.5% against the US dollar since the beginning of the year. It is currently selling at about 12 cedis 20 pesos to the dollar at foreign exchange bureaus. The Bank of Ghana also reported that cedi depreciated by 9.5% against the British pound and 7.1% against the euro during the same period. Meanwhile, Databank Research attributes the recent weakness in the interbank market to sustained foreign exchange demand exceeding supply. The research firm, however, noted that Ghana's gross international reserves remain strong, supported by gold purchases and traditional export earnings. Databank added that while the Bank of Ghana has sufficient reserves to support the market, government's target of increasing reserves to cover about 15 months of import by 2028 may reduce the scale of foreign exchange interventions, potentially allowing modest pressure on the cedi to persist in the near term. In more news this morning, the Bank of Ghana will dispose of its remaining shareholdings in the Agricultural Development Bank and the National Investment Bank as part of efforts to strengthen its role solely as the country's financial sector regulator. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Pandit Tesiama, announced the decision after the 131st Monetary Policy Committee meeting. He disclosed that the Bank of Ghana board has approved the sale of its remaining 13% stake in the Agricultural Development Bank, with the transaction expected to be completed later this year. Dr. Siama also revealed that the central bank will divest its remaining 1% stake in the National Investment Bank. According to him, the decision is intended to eliminate any perception of conflict between the Bank of Ghana's ownership interest and its supervisory responsibilities. The governor stressed that the central bank's primary responsibility is to regulate and supervise the banking sector, not to hold ownership interest in commercial banks. Touching on business and consumer confidence, Dr. Siama acknowledged a slight decline in the latest confidence surveys, but described the change as marginal. He attributed the softer sentiment largely to global economic uncertainty and renewed geopolitical tensions, saying these external developments are affecting businesses and consumers around the world. Despite the slight decline, the governor maintained that confidence in Ghana's economy remains broadly stable, adding that the latest trends do not reflect any significant deterioration in the country's domestic economic fundamentals. Ghana's export earnings have reached a record $18.2 billion in the first half of 2026, driven largely by strong gold exports. Latest data from the Bank of Ghana's Summary of Economic and Financial Data show that total exports increased significantly from $13.7 billion recorded during the same period in 2025. gold remained the main contributor to the growth, generating $12.5 billion in earnings by the end of June 2026, compared to $8.3 billion in the same period last year. Cocoa exports also recorded a marginal increase, bringing in $2.2 billion up from $2.1 billion in June 2025. Oil exports contributed $1.7 billion, while other exports generated $1.7 billion during the same period. Meanwhile, Ghana spent about $9.4 billion on imports in the first 6 months of 2026, with oil imports alone accounting for $3.3 billion. The strong export performance helped the country record a trade surplus of $8.8 billion by June 2026, compared to $5.7 billion recorded during the same period last year. Economic analysts say the improvement in the trade balance could strengthen Ghana's foreign exchange position and support efforts to improve international reserves. The development comes ahead of expected inflows of more than $500 million from development partners by the end of the third quarter of 2026, which could further boost the country's reserve position. Meanwhile, Ghana's total public debt stock increased by 46.7 billion Ghana cedis between February and May 2026, according to the latest summary of economic and financial data released by the Bank of Ghana. The data shows that the country's public debt rose by 674.1 billion Ghana cedis in February to 720.8 billion Ghana cedis by May, representing an increase of about 7% within the 3-month period. The debt stock increased steadily during the period. Rising to 686.1 billion Ghana cedis in March and 695.9 billion Ghana cedis in April, before reaching 720.8 billion Ghana cedis in May. However, when measured in US dollar terms, Ghana's total debt declined from $63.2 billion in February to $61.5 billion in May, largely due to the appreciation of the ZED against major international currencies. Despite the reduction in dollar terms, the country's debt to GDP ratio increased from 42.2% to 45.1%, indicating that debt growth outpaced economic expansion during the period. The Bank of Ghana's data also shows that external debt increased from 313.6 billion Ghana cedis in February to 341.7 billion Ghana cedis in May, representing 21.4% of GDP. Domestic debt also rose to 379.1 billion Ghana cedis in May, accounting for 23.7% of GDP, as government relied more on the domestic market to finance its budget and meet maturing obligations. The increase in public debt comes as government continues to implement reforms under the IMF-supported economic program aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability. Meanwhile, government says it has fully settled a $700 million Eurobond obligation ahead of schedule, bringing total payments to Eurobond holders to $2.1 billion since January 2025 under the country's Eurobond debt exchange program. Away from that, the Bank of Ghana has warned unlicensed digital lenders that they risk regulatory sanctions after failing to comply with a June 30 deadline to regularize their operations. In a public notice, the central bank said mobile loan applications and other digital credit service providers that did not obtain the required approval will face sanctions under the country's financial regulations. The bank says the move is aimed at strengthening oversight of Ghana's rapidly growing digital lending sector and protecting consumers from unregulated operators. It is urging the public to access digital loans only from providers licensed by the Bank of Ghana. and announced that an updated list of approved digital credit service providers will be published on its website to help customers verify legitimate lenders. The central bank says the expansion of digital lending has improved access to credit for individuals and small businesses, but has also raised concerns over unfair loan terms, data privacy, customer harassment, and other activities of unlicensed operators. The Bank of Ghana has also issued a set of frequently asked questions to guide the public on licensing requirements, how to identify approved providers, and the implications of dealing with non-compliant digital lenders. Ghana's gross international reserves declined by 1.2 billion US dollars between March and June this year, despite strong growth in export earnings. Latest data from the Bank of Ghana show the country's reserves fell from 14.16 billion US dollars in March to 12.94 billion US dollars by the end of June. The decline reduced Ghana's import cover from 5.7 months to 5 months, leaving a smaller foreign exchange buffer to meet the country's external payment obligations. Net international reserves also fell during the period, dropping from 11.87 billion US dollars to 10.8 billion US dollars. The decline comes even as Ghana recorded strong export growth, driven mainly by gold. Total export increased by more than 100%, rising from 8.51 billion US dollars in March to 18.29 billion US dollars in June. Gold exports more than doubled from 5.26 billion US dollars to 12.50 billion US dollars, while cocoa export rose by about 39% to 2.29 billion US dollars. Oil export also increased to 1.71 billion US dollars. The strong export performance helped Ghana's trade surplus almost double from 4.53 billion US dollars to 8.81 billion US dollars. However, higher export earnings were offset by rising foreign exchange outflows and increased import demand. Total imports surged from 3.99 billion US dollars to 9.48 billion US dollars, driven by oil and non-oil imports. Despite the decline in reserves, Ghana's gold holdings increased from 3 billion US dollars to 3.6 billion US dollars, providing some support to the country's external position. The Bank of Ghana says maintaining strong international reserves remains critical to supporting exchange rate stability, financing imports, and sustaining investor confidence. And to our last story for the bulletin, the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy says Ghana's recent macroeconomic gains have not translated into genuine fiscal space, warning that the country's financial position remains constrained despite improvement in key economic indicators. In an analysis by its executive director, Professor Isaac Boadi, the institute said falling inflation, a lower debt to GDP ratio, and improved currency stability have created a positive outlook, but do not necessarily reflect stronger fiscal fundamentals. According to the analysis, fiscal space should be measured by government's ability to meet existing obligations while still having room to invest, borrow responsibly, and respond to economic shocks. Professor Boadi noted that although Ghana's debt to GDP ratio declined from 51.1% in April 2025 to 41.5% by January 2026, part of the improvement resulted from the rebasing of the country's gross domestic product rather than a significant reduction in debt. He argued that domestic debt continued to rise in cedi terms, while recurrent expenditure and debt servicing continue to absorb a large share of government revenue, leaving little room for capital investment. The institute also expressed concern over government's reliance on domestic borrowing, warning that it could crowd out private sector access to credit. The institute further pointed to the recent depreciation of the cedi, Rising inflation, declining foreign exchange reserves, and weaker cocoa prices are signs that Ghana's economic recovery remains fragile. The Institute is urging government to prioritize stronger revenue mobilization, protect international reserves, and create sustainable conditions for investment, rather than assuming that recent economic improvement have created broad fiscal flexibility. This is where we draw the curtains on the business news. But before I leave, a recap of our top stories. MPC maintains policy rate at 14% amid inflation risk. Also, Ghana's public debt rises by 46.7 billion Ghana cedis in 3 months. And the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy says Ghana's physical space still limited despite economic gains. We came your way with these stories and many others from our studio here at number 6 Anyete Avenue in Sleeping Accra. For more news, you can log on to www.zmultimedia.com, or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook and X at ZFMGH, and on TikTok and YouTube at Z Multimedia. I am Mami Ifwa Kwejua. Thank you for listening. Nature B continues with the BBC.
You're tuned in to ZED 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
In our quest to redefine modern living, Lakeside Estate proudly unveils a new wave of innovation and elegance. Introducing the all-new Starfish, our redesigned 3-bedroom home crafted for today's modern family. Step into a space where functionality meets finesse. The Starfish features spacious layouts, sleek contemporary finishes, and sits within
look at it this way and you say that or you ask yourself, where did all the money go? Not because you're not earning, not because you are unemployed, and not because maybe business is not moving, but because somehow, despite earning more than you did a few years ago, you still feel financially stretched. You remember when you were earning much less and somehow you survived. You paid your bills, you saved a little, you were careful and all of that. But now the income has increased, the opportunities have increased, the lifestyle has increased, but the financial freedom you expected has not arrived. And that brings us to an interesting conversation today, because sometimes the biggest threat to building wealth is not earning too little. Sometimes it is adjusting too quickly to earning more. Now, let me introduce you to a gentleman called Afari. Now, Afari is 34 years old. He's a marketing professional or marketing executive based in Accra. Now, 8 years ago, Afari started his first corporate job and he was earning 3,800 cedis a month. 3,800 cedis a month. Now, it was not a huge salary, but Afari was very, very, very intentional. He lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment. He used public transport most days. He cooked at home. He avoided unnecessary expenses. And because he understood that every cedi mattered, he was able to save almost 30% of his income every single month. Now, he had a dream. Not in sleep, but he had a dream that, he was going to own a home by 40 years or before 40, build investments, eventually leave employment and start his own consultancy and all of that. Now, at that stage, Afari was not earning much, but he was building something. 3,800 cedis a month, living modestly, trying to adjust to life, doing everything, everything cool like that. Now, fast forward to 2026, Afari's life looks very, very different. Through promotions, side consulting, and bonuses, he now earns more than 28,000 cedis a month. You see the jump. 7 times what he earned when he started. He was earning 3,800. Now he earns 28,000 Ghana cedis every single month. Now, from the outside, everyone thinks Afari has made it. And honestly, it looks that way. He has upgraded his apartment. He drives a brand new SUV. He enjoys restaurants several times a week. He travels. He buys premium gadgets. He wears designer brands. His social media tells a story of success. Beautiful pictures, nice locations, good food, and all of that. A lifestyle that you and I will often admire. But behind the pictures is a very different reality. Because despite earning almost 7 times more than before, Afari does not feel 7 times richer. His savings have not grown the way he expected. His investments are limited, and most of his income is already committed before the month even begins. You can talk about rent, car payment, insurance, entertainment, subscriptions, lifestyle expenses. And when unexpected situations happen, he has to rely on credit cards or short-term borrowing. Then something happens. His company goes through a restructuring. Bonuses reduce, allowances change, and suddenly the income that supported his lifestyle is no longer guaranteed. And Afari faces a very difficult question. Did his income increase his wealth, or did it simply increase his expenses? My friend, this is a conversation many people can relate to, because lifestyle inflation is something that happens quietly. It does not announce itself. Nobody wakes up and says that today, I'll increase my expenses until I become, financially vulnerable. Nobody wakes up to say that, but it happens gradually. A salary increase comes, and then you upgrade your phone. You move to a nicer apartment. You start eating out more. You take more trips. You upgrade your car. You add more subscriptions. And each decision seems reasonable on its own. But together, they create a new lifestyle that becomes difficult to maintain. And before you realize it, your income has grown, but your financial security has not. Now, maybe you're listening to me this morning, and what I'm talking about seems quite distant from you. I want you to know that it can happen in the smallest things. It can happen in the smallest things that you do. Maybe within a month, you earn some 5,000 cedis, maybe from your main job, but somebody gives you a gift of 500 cedis. How do you react to that 500 cedis that has been added to your income for that particular month? How do you react to it? Do you just jump on to buy to begin to get Uber? Not to mention any brand, but to begin to ride hail, to eating out, or maybe go and spend that 500 cedis somewhere. Just we know how we react to some of these things. That is a reality. Now, according to research by financial institutions and consumer surveys, a significant number of households struggle to maintain savings even as their income rises because spending increases alongside earnings. Let me repeat that. So I'm saying that according to research by financial institutions and consumer surveys, a significant number of households struggle to maintain savings. They are unable to maintain savings. They struggle to do that even as their income increases, because spending increases alongside the earnings. Now, in the United States, studies by financial researchers have found that many households experience lifestyle creep, where higher income is quickly absorbed by higher consumption. And globally, financial experts often point to a simple reality that your ability to earn more does not automatically translate into your ability to build wealth. The fact that you're earning a lot, the fact that your income has increased doesn't mean that you're able to build wealth, or it doesn't necessarily lead to wealth, because income and wealth are not the same thing. Income is what comes in, wealth is what stays, what grows and continues working for you. And this distinction is very, very important. Now, a person earning, say, 5,000 cedis who consistently saves and invests may be building more financial security than someone earning 30,000 but spending almost everything. Now, let's be clear. This conversation is not about saying people should not enjoy their success. Far from that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with rewarding yourself. There's nothing wrong with moving into a better home. There's nothing wrong with traveling. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your hard work. The question is not, should I enjoy my money? The question is, am I enjoying my money while still building my future? Because there's a difference between lifestyle improvement and lifestyle inflation. We're going to talk about that very soon when we get into our roundtable discussion. So many things are happening and they've changed the way we approach life. So many things. All right. So we're going to talk about that very, very soon when we get into our roundtable discussion. Our topic for the day is the lifestyle inflation trap. Why money or why more income doesn't always mean more wealth. And we are going beyond the surface. We're asking, why do people increase their spending when their income increases? How much of inflation or lifestyle inflation is driven by social pressure? How can professionals and entrepreneurs enjoy success without sacrificing financial security? And how do we build wealth in a culture that constantly encourages us to spend more? Because at the end of the day, the question is not how much money do you make. The deeper question is, what is your money helping you build? So whether you're just starting your career, you're growing a business, you are enjoying a recent promotion, or trying to make better financial decisions, please, this conversation is for you. You want to stick and stay with us right here, because in a few moments we'll unpack how to enjoy the rewards of success without being trapped or becoming trapped by the cost of maintaining it. And that is what we'll be talking about on our roundtable discussion. Please share the link with your family and friends. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH, and on YouTube we are at Z Multimedia. This is a very, very important conversation, and you do somebody a great deal of good if you share the link with them this morning. So head to Facebook and send the link to your friends. We're at ZFMGH on Facebook, and on YouTube, Z Multimedia. Please feel free, head there and share the link with your family and friends. Also, you can join the conversation on our WhatsApp. Send me a WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019, and I'll read all your messages for you. You can also call me on 03039 56641, 03039 56641 when we open the phone lines, and I'd love to hear from you this morning. All right, so that will be all for our business brief segment. We're going to get into our roundtable discussion very, very, very soon after our transport today and market trends segment. All right, so let's get into transport today right away.
This is the pre-boarding announcement for flight 3728.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get into transport today this morning. And we're looking at some news in aviation, and of course, we'll look at the local flight schedules as well. All right, so let's begin here with the stories, trending in the world of aviation. Now, this one says that Spain cleared for glory. Iberia celebrates as World Cup champions. Also, this one says that African businesses tend to. Okay, let me just look at this very well. It says a technical fault. All right, let me look at this one instead. It says that Spain cleared for glory and Iberia celebrates as World Cup champions. Also, this one says that airlines take center stage at FIFA World Cup. All right, I think those are quite old stories. Let's move on to. All right, so this one says that BAE unveils Brontanax CCA to support UK RAF's sixth generation ambitions, and also Jet Zero wins Gulf Air LOI and JAL support for Z4 blended wing body. Also, Airbus aims at doubling profits in commercial aircrafts. All right, so those are some of the stories here. Let's look at them briefly before we move on to the local flight schedules as well as the traffic situation in town. This one says that BAE Systems is set to help the UK Royal Air Force RAF take its first steps in the collaborative combat aircraft era and move the service towards its aim of being Europe's first sixth generation Air Force. Now, the company unveiled a model of its Brontanax CCA here at Farnborough Air Show, a self-funded autonomous platform. It plans to begin test flying next year and allow the RAF to achieve its aim of flying a CCA alongside a Eurofighter Typhoon before the end of 2027. Now, Brontanax is an ancient Greek word for Thunder King. Now, while a number of US developed CCAs have tried to grab the RAF's attention, BAE claims it's a diamond-winged, low-observable platform similar in size to a Hawk jet trainer is entirely sovereign, leaning on a supply chain of nearly 100 UK companies. Now, the 5 metric ton class Brontanax lacks a British engine using a US Williams International in this initial iteration now, but BAE Systems and RAF hope to be able to lean on an emerging family of power plants developed by Rolls-Royce and an Orpheus family of low-cost and rapidly developed turbofans in the future. And although the new platform is seen as a demonstrator of RAF, for BAE the aircraft is a pre-series, pre-production prototype of an aircraft it wants to put into serial production and failed with the UK or allies. Dave Holmes, director of BAE's Falcon Works Aerospace Research and Development arm, told journalists ahead of the review. And so that is that's there this morning. All right, let's move on to look at this one as well. It says that Airbus aims at doubling profit in commercial aircraft, and let me read that as well. It says that England Airbus is targeting doubling of operating profits in its commercial aircraft business within the next 3 years, along with significant growth in its services business. Now, the aircraft manufacturer told investors in a July 21 business update that it aims to reach adjusted operating profit of 10 billion euros, which is the equivalent of 12 billion US dollars in 2029, compared with 5.5 billion euros in 2025. Now, Airbus also wants to generate 10 billion euros in services revenue through organic growth and acquisition that add to its current capabilities, and says that we want to sell more services to our customers. Airbus Commercial Aircraft Lars Wagner says that now the company is also targeting double-digit profitability in its services business. And Wagner made it clear that Airbus is not only sticking to production growth targets for single-aisle aircraft, but also is planning significant growth in wide-body outputs. Now, Airbus aims to reach a production rate of 12 A350s per month in 2028, which Wagner said is the minimum or the maximum, possible with the current final assembly line setup. Now, growth will be one driver of profitability, but Wagner also pointed to targeted efficiency improvements. In addition, airline demand for larger, more capable aircraft means product mix also will support those goals. All right, so those are some stories in the world of aviation. Let's move on to the local flight schedules for today, and we're beginning with Africa World Airlines. Now, if you're looking forward to traveling from Accra to Kumasi, please take note of the following flight schedules. There are 6 flights available for Africa World Airlines today from Accra to Kumasi. Now, the first flight's at 9:40 a.m. and you should be in Kumasi by 10:20 a.m. because it takes 40 minutes to get to your destination. That's the first flight, 9:40 to 10:20. Second flight is at 10:10 a.m. and you should arrive by 10:50 a.m. 10:10 a.m. and you should arrive by 10:50 a.m. The third flight for the day is at 2:10 p.m. and you should be in Kumasi by 2:50 p.m. as well. 2:10 p.m. and arrive in Kumasi by 2:50 as well. Now the fourth flight for the day is at 3:10 p.m. and you should be in Kumasi by 3:50 p.m. and so please take note of that as well. Now the last but one flight for the day is at 4:40 p.m. and you arrive in Kumasi by 5:20 p.m. and that is that. And the last flight is at 7 p.m. and you'll be in Kumasi by 7:40 p.m. So those are the schedules for Accra to Kumasi Africa World Airlines. Let's move on to Accra to Tamale. Now, if you're looking forward to traveling from Accra to Tamale, please take note of these as well. There are 2 flights available today for Africa World Airlines, Accra to Tamale. Now, the first flight is at 12:30 p.m. and it's and then you arrive by 1:30 p.m. in Tamale. So it takes just an hour to get to your destination. Now the second flight, which is the last flight for the day, is at 3:30 p.m. and you should arrive by 4:30 p.m. in Tamale. So if you're looking forward to traveling by air from Accra to Tamale, those are the schedules for Africa World Airlines this morning. Let's move on to Africa. Okay, let me see if I'm able to move on to Passion Air this morning. Let's look at Passion Air. Now, there's a few schedules here as well. Okay, there's one more that we have to return to with Africa World Airlines. So I'll look at that and then we'll give you that as well. But let's move on to let's move on to Passion Air. Now, Passion Air from Accra to Kumasi, there are 6 flights available as well. The first one has taken off already, 6:20 a.m. and it should be in it should be in Kumasi by 7:10 a.m. Yes, okay, so I'm sure it's also landed already. Now the second flight is at 9:10 a.m. and you should be in Kumasi by 10 o'clock. It takes 15 minutes to get to your destination by Passion Air. And also 12 o'clock is the third flight and you arrive by 12:50 in Kumasi from Accra, and 12 to 12:50. And then the fourth flight for the day is at 2:50 and you should arrive in Kumasi by 3:40. Sorry. Yes, like I said, it takes 40 minutes. It takes 50 minutes, right, to get to Kumasi from Accra by Passion Air. And also this one says, okay, right, so the next flight is at 6:40 p.m. and you arrive in Kumasi by 7:30, 6:40 and arrive by 7:30. And the last flight for the day is at 7:50 p.m. and you should be in Kumasi by 8:40 p.m. So those are the schedules for for Passion Air, Accra to Kumasi today. Let's move on to Accra to Sunyani now. There's only one flight available and it's at 9:10 and you arrive in Sunyani by 10:10 a.m. So please take note of that as well. And then the Accra to Takoradi, if you're looking forward to traveling from Accra to Takoradi today, the first flight has already taken off, 6:20, and that's even landed already by 7:10 in Takoradi. The next flight, which is the only flight left, is at 4:20 and you should arrive in Takoradi by 5:10 p.m. So please take note of that as well. Now, the Accra to Tamale, there are 3 flights available. First one has already taken off and landed, and the second one, which is this afternoon at 12:20, and you arrive in Tamale by 1:40. Takes 1 hour 20 minutes to get to your destination from Accra to Tamale, Passion Air. And then by the last flight for the day is at 4 o'clock and you arrive in Tamale by 5:20. So please take note of that as well. There are last 3 seats available for both of them. So those are the schedules for Tamale, Accra to Tamale. Now let's move on finally to Accra to Wa. From Accra to Wa, the only flights, there's only one flight available, and it's at 9:50 a.m. and you should be in Wa by 11:30. Takes 1 hour 40 minutes to get there from Accra using Passion Air. So please take note of that as well. 9:50 and you arrive in Wa by 11:30. All right. So those are the schedules for the day. Passion Air and Africa World Airlines. All right. So that will be all for transport today this morning. The show continues. This is Business Breakfast on ZED 101.9 FM with me, Nee Trebi Hammond. And we're going to take a quick music break. When we return, we bring you our conversation this morning on our market trends segment. Please don't go anywhere. Stick and stay with us right here on the show. And also engage us on our social media platforms. We'll be very, very glad to hear from you this morning. Please stay tuned. Grace by Diana Hamilton. Now, this morning, I've got some good news for you. If you're ready to step into your dream home, the Lakeside Estate has got an exclusive offer for you. Yes, if you've been praying, wishing, and hoping to step into your dream home, then this offer is for you. Now, Lakeside Estate is giving you an offer where you can own your own house in just 2 years with no interest repayment. Yes, you heard me right. You can own your own house in just 2 years with no interest repayment. And this offer gives you affordable payments, flexible home purchase plan, quality homes, and lifestyle choice. You get to choose from a variety of beautiful homes in any of Lakeside Hills clusters. Yes, so your future awaits. Just imagine living in a home you love with the freedom to invest in your dreams without the burden of interest. Just imagine that. So, as your CIMG Real Estate Company of the Year for the 4th time, we offer you hassle-free home acquisition. And all you have to do is to place a call to us today. You can call us on 020-477-5042, 020-477-5042, or 020-477-5040, 020-477-5040, or 050-1418622, 050-1418622. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Don't miss out. You can call us now to learn more and schedule a tour of our available homes. Lakeside Estate, we say quality home for all. All right, so that's the good news I've got for you this morning. We're going to get into a market trends segment very, very, very soon. And Emmanuel Barton will be joining me for a conversation this morning. Please don't go anywhere. Stick and stay. We'll take a quick music break again, and then when we return, we'll bring you all of that right here on the show. Please don't go anywhere. conversations coming up. We're going to touch briefly on the monetary policy decision that was announced yesterday by the Bank of Ghana Governor, Dr. Johnson Pandit Siama. Now, so yesterday we had a conversation here asking whether the Bank of Ghana was going to cut or hold the policy rate, and we were told, they actually held the rate yesterday, and they cited quite a number of things, including the tensions in the Middle East, and the risks associated with that when it comes to inflation and all of that. This morning, we want to have a conversation on that, and also attention is also being turned to Parliament, where the Finance Minister, Dr. Kesela Tuforsen, today will be presenting the mid-year budget review in Parliament. And so we'll also have a conversation on that, some of the expectations and all of that. But I would love to hear from you. Feel free to tell us your expectations for that. You can send them to us on our WhatsApp number 0544 321019, 0544 321019. I'd love to hear from you this morning. Please send me a WhatsApp right away. And also, you can drop a comment under our live stream on Facebook. We're streaming live at ZFMGH, and on YouTube, we're at Z Multimedia. Feel free to drop a comment there. I'd love to read them for you. If you're expecting new taxes, if you're expecting some new things, feel free to let us know so that we can read your messages for you this morning. All right, Emmanuel Boating, our in-house economic analyst, joins me over the phone lines for our market trend segment for today. Iman, good morning. Hello.
Hello, Nisha. Good morning.
Yes, how are you doing, my brother?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. How are you doing too?
I'm doing well by God's grace too. Thanks so much for making time to join us this morning.
Yeah, welcome. And good morning to our cherished listeners as well.
All right, so let's get into our conversation. So yesterday, we had a conversation here about the monetary policy decision, or the expectations for that. And I think one of the things that you mentioned was that there's a likelihood that they are going to hold or cut. Those were the two options available. It's being held. What are your reactions?
Thank you very much. And like I said earlier, good morning to good morning to all our cherished listeners. Of course, my expectations were that the monetary policy was going to be held. In the worst case scenario, like I said yesterday, it will be cut. But the impossible scenario was that they were going to raise it. So for that one, I certainly knew that there was no way that was going to happen. I knew it would be very, very unusual for the interest rate to go up. Yeah. Now, the point is that the Bank of Ghana's 131st Monetary Policy Committee actually met from 20th to the 22nd of July. And, of course, yesterday was when they did the meeting. So they unanimously maintained the MPR at 14%. I think the basic message from yesterday's concluding remarks was simple, and that domestic conditions are improving, but the bank does not want to cut rates while new inflation risks are emerging, which I strongly align with. We know the story that inflation increased sharply in June. It moved from 3.7 in May to 5.3 in June this year. And the increase was largely associated with high transport costs and all of that. You see, although 5.3 remains below the medium-term bandwidth of 8% plus or minus 2 or 6 to 10%, I think the direction of the movement concerned the Monetary Policy Committee. You see, so the bank is not reacting only to the level of inflation. I think it is also watching the direction. Inflation remains relatively low, but the movement from 3.7 to 5.3 in 1 month justified some level of caution, because you cannot just go and then cut the rate. We all know how the Middle East conflict also presents an oil price risk. We know the renewed conflict in the Middle East, among other things, and how it affected oil prices and all of that. So the Bank of Ghana wants to effectively purchase some level of insurance. That is where, against any level or any form of external shock, because a premature rate cut could worsen inflation expectations if, for example, fuel and transport prices continue to rise. There is also a possible utility tariff increase, which could also raise inflation. And so they are looking beyond today's inflation, which is one of the key things I highlighted yesterday. They are looking beyond today's inflation figure. You see, utility tariff adjustments, they create a second round of price increases through production, transport, and service costs. And maybe another point I may want to add is that when you cut the policy rates, when the currency is already experiencing pressure, that could encourage capital movement into foreign currency and intensify imported inflation. Many other things, economic growth, foreign reserves, so many other things play a key role. My assessment of the decision is this. See, I am going to describe the decision as a cautious and defensible one, but it is not one that is beyond criticism. The bank has already, and when I use the bank, I mean the Bank of Ghana, they have already reduced the policy rate significantly over the preceding year. And you see, pausing or holding it allows it to evaluate the effect. It is going to allow the Bank of Ghana to evaluate the effect of those earlier reductions before any further easing. With inflation rising, with oil prices increasing, possible utility adjustments, CD pressures, declining reserves, I think that maintaining the rate protects the credibility of the disinflation process. However, the current MPR of 14% against inflation of 5.3% produces what we'll call an ex-post real policy rate of approximately 8.7 percentage points. That is still a relatively restrictive monetary position. So I think that that is the point. And I think there is a way in which I can even connect it to what may be happening today in Parliament, the mid-year budget review. See, the MPC decision sends a direct message to the finance minister. What are you telling the minister? Fiscal policy must not create additional inflationary pressure. So they would expect that there will be continued fiscal consolidation, which was one of the factors the Bank of Ghana cited as a way in which they could moderate the inflation rate. Therefore, the expectation is that the mid-year review should avoid major unplanned expenditure increases, new arrears and unpaid commitments, excessive domestic borrowing, many other things, spending, expansion unsupported by reliable revenue, and perhaps any measure that is likely to undermine confidence in the city. So largely, these are the major points I would like to highlight. In conclusion, I think the decision to maintain the rate is like I said, a hold, it's a pause. It's not necessarily the end of monetary easing. A future reduction is essentially going to depend on whether inflation stabilizes, whether the city remains resilient, whether reserves improve, and whether our fiscal policy stays disciplined. The Bank of Ghana is saying that, you see, Ghana must consolidate the gains that they have made before taking another step.
I see. How should businesses interpret this decision to keep the policy rates unchanged? What should be the interpretation for businesses?
Well, thank you very much. Once the policy rate is unchanged, I think that a few things emerge. One of which includes, if the transmission has not been fully realized, the transmission of the policy decision, which we are still holding on to it, is not fully come to light. There are things that you may need to look at, and I'm touching on borrowing costs, for example. They are going to be, if the rate was cut, for example, we know borrowing costs would have fallen over time. But because it has not been cut, it sends that signal that there's not going to be any immediate policy-driven reduction in borrowing costs. So yes, borrowing costs could come down, but it will not come down because of monetary policy. So if you're a business expecting another reduction in the monetary policy rate, you may have to wait. It's not now. Because they've maintained it at 14, and the bank is signaling that it is not yet ready to provide any additional monetary easing. Because we know the MPR influences interbank rates, the Ghana reference rate, and eventually commercial lending rates. And that is the story. However, the MPR itself is not the actual rate at which every business borrows, because we know the banks are going to add, Ghana reference rate, the borrower's risk premium, administrative staff, and all of that. So that is one of them. So I think that the point is that for businesses, an unchanged policy rate means there may be no immediate additional relief in borrowing costs. Companies must still contend with the risk premiums and charges that are imposed by commercial banks. The second thing is that I think businesses should not necessarily expect lending rates to increase. You see, maintaining the MPR is different from increasing it. The decision means the bank has paused further reductions, but it has not tightened policy through a higher rate. It's also important and imperative for me to explain this one, because if it is reduced, we know it is reduced. If it is increased, we know it is increased. If it is paused, it also means that we shouldn't expect it to go up. Commercial lending rates may remain stable or even continue declining gradually if, number one, maybe inflation remains controlled. Number two, T-bill rate remains low. Banks have sufficient liquidity available to give out as loans. There's competition, among the banks, and that competition intensifies. All of these factors will play a role. So the unchanged MPR does not automatically mean lending rates will rise. It means the pace of further reduction may be slower and will depend on liquidity. It will depend on T-bill rates and the risk profile of the individual borrowers. Maybe another thing I'll add finally will be expansion and investment decisions of businesses may have to be postponed, because a relatively high cost of credit increases the minimum return a business must expect before undertaking a project. So if perhaps you had intentions of using a loan or something at a certain price to open a new branch, purchase a new machinery, expand your production, hire additional labor or workers, enter a new market, maybe invest in a new technology. I can go on and on and on. Of course, what money is used for, we can all mention plenty. It will affect the project with long payback periods. So some businesses may delay expansion because the cost of financing remains high relative to the expected return on the investment. So these are many, many implications, and there are some more that this policy decision has for business.
All right. Okay. I think because of our time, we'll move on to the finance minister. The budget review that will be given. Will be read today or presented today. But just before that, do you have anything to say? Anything to add to the conversations on MPR before we move on?
Oh, not yet.
Okay. All right. So let's turn our attention to that now. So Finance Minister is presenting the mid-year budget review today. What should Ghanaians be paying attention or be paying the most attention to, beyond the headlines and political statements that will come out from that?
Thank you. Well, I think, maybe I'm a Ghanaian, so let's start with my own expectations. I think that it's a mid-year budget review, so I want to see how targets are set.
Well, first of all, maybe maybe somebody listening to us doesn't know exactly what it is. What is that? What is a mid-year budget review? And then we can zoom into the expectations.
Okay. So generally, in Ghana, the law, first of all, is a law that requires that a budget is presented. It's a budget of the president, and mid-year review is also one that is supported by the law. But essentially, it's a report that is presented by the Minister of Finance on behalf of the president to Parliament halfway through the financial year to assess, to evaluate, how the national budget is performing and whether any adjustments are needed. Maybe think of it like this. At the beginning of the year, government prepared a budget and they said that we expect to collect X amount of revenue, we expect to spend X amount of money, we expect the economy to grow by X rate, we expect inflation to be around X percent. 6 months later, government comes back to parliament and says that this is what we planned. This is what actually happened. And this is what we need to change for the rest of the year.
Right.
Simple analogy. Imagine you plan your yearly expenses. In January, you said salary 60,000, rent 12,000, food 18,000, savings 10,000. By June, you realize you earn less than expected. Food prices increased. Your car broke down. So many things. You review your budget and adjust your plans for the remaining 6 months. That is exactly what government does with the national budget. You see? So they are going to be discussing issues about revenue performance. They'll report how much money has actually been collected from taxes, customs duties, petroleum revenue, gold and mineral royalties, grants, tax revenue, etc., etc. Questions: did we collect more or less than expected, and why? That question must necessarily be addressed. You see, I'm putting the two questions, the one you asked in the beginning and then the one I'm answering together.
Yeah.
The expenditure side will also come up. Government reports will typically tell us salaries, social benefits, benefits programs and all, social intervention programs, so education, health. We'll talk about infrastructure, we'll talk about roads, interest payments, and on and on. And then questions are like, are we overspending? Are we underspending? Which ministries have spent more or less than planned? And on and on. Then we'll look at economic performance, GDP growth rates, inflation, exchange rate, interest rate, employment, oil prices, trade performance, and what have you. And the minister would explain whether government is borrowing more or less than originally planned. And then they'll talk about, I'm saying we, I'm not part of, they'll talk about public debt and all of that. You see, so that is yeah.
Right. So now we can move on to your expectations, maybe more specifically.
My expectations, well, or ordinary people's expectations.
So you are about to talk about yours first, and then those of what we, the ordinary Ghanaians, should be expecting as well.
And that would mean that we are not ordinary Ghanaians. So. We are very ordinary. Okay, me, I'm ordinary. As on this every day,
I'm extraordinary, yes. Go on.
Okay, but initially, let me get to the point. I think my expectation is that the mid-year budget review will go beyond presenting positive headline figures. And as it were, provide us with a clear account of how the 2026 budget has performed during the first half of the year. And I'll demonstrate what I mean. First of all, I expect the Minister for Finance, Honorable Kesio Atuforsen, to present a proper comparison between the targets set at the beginning of the year and the actual results that were achieved. You see, Ghanaians should be told how much revenue was projected, how much has been collected, how much government plan to spend, how much has actually been spent, and whether the fiscal deficit, if any, remains within target. Second, I expect the review to explain how the reported macroeconomic, improvement in inflation, in economic growth, and exchange rate stability is translating into the daily lives of citizens. I want to know that. You see, the major concern for many households is still the cost of food, the cost of transport, utilities, rent, and other essential services. Maybe you will not understand this, but in the morning, go around the water cellar, go around the porridge cellar. In the afternoon, visit Davy at the Gobe joint. Try and engage in the evening. Go to a fufu bar or something like that. Engage them in and I'm saying in your saying to wait these days. How are things faring? Are they buying enough, etc., etc. And sometimes stand there and listen to the comment that comes from the people who come to buy from them, and you would understand that cost of living is high. So how is everything that we are doing at that level translating to the basic pockets of the citizenry? So important and very crucial. So it's something I look forward to. Yes, city to dollar stable. That is okay. Inflation down. Perfect. Economic growth on point. Excellent. The big question remains. How is that translating into the daily lives of the Ghanaian people? Therefore, the review should show how macroeconomic stability will lead to improved living standards. And I think the third thing we expect, is concrete information on job creation. Government should not only repeat the number of jobs it intends to create, it should indicate how many jobs have actually been created. In fact, the sectors in which they were created and whether they are permanent jobs or temporary jobs. Are they,
I think government... that particular distinction is very, very important.
Yes. The way you said is very important. Is there something I should know?
There's I don't want to go into all the issues, but I mean, in this country, we've seen several government initiatives, towards job creation, where which didn't last, it was something very temporary. And then after some time, it goes back to zero. So people that we think, okay, are employed, they are just employed for a short time and then they go back to unemployment. And so I think that distinction is very, very important that we need to highlight.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're making a point. You can continue.
Yeah, so I'm saying that is very, very essential. So essential. Because you see, this is a government. I was coming to make the point that essentially the government, before coming into power, campaigned on I think it's 1 job, 3 shifts, 3 people. I'm not sure if I got it right. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to put across.
Yes, I get it. The 133,
So
24
this is something key, because the government's campaign was on the back of job creation. And in this country, sometimes I'm shocked. Governments come into power, and what they create is not sustainable jobs. These are jobs that people get something from it for a while, and then tomorrow the job is no more. You see, so I expect something big on job creation. See, I expect something big on job creation. But not just that, in fact, I also want to know how many young people have benefited from the jobs that I've created. Young people, say 18 years to say 35 years, or at most 40 years. Young people, because we know that data is crucial. Fourth, maybe I accept clarity on the cost of doing business. Well, yes, I know. Let's consider perhaps the fact that inflation has reduced. Businesses like SMEs in particular, they still face high lending rates. They still face high utility costs, expensive transport, and difficulty accessing credit. You see, the review should announce practical measures to support productive businesses and ensure that economic stability translates into lower operating costs. That is key. That is very, very key. Maybe if you own a business this point comes in allies. Many own businesses and they are going through a lot. They are going through SARS. A lot.
Right.
So I think that is a major expectation. Major expenditure and infrastructure is also another expectation. People want to know about their roads because roads in this country is something that sometimes I don't want to even discuss. So we expect government to account for major expenditure and infrastructure projects. For instance, the big push. The public should know. They should know, which projects have started, how much has been released, and the level of completion of the project. And if any has ended, let us know. In fact, within that big push project, let us know the number of jobs that were created as against what you said you would have created with it, and whether value for money is being achieved. The sixth thing I expect, I can list so many if you don't stop me, is that I expect the review to address Ghana's debt position. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, I heard in Parliament that we're borrowing $300 million dollars, to finance free SHS.
Not free SHS. Not free SHS. I think government it was clarified that it was for infrastructure expansion at in our various senior high schools and not necessarily free SHS.
Okay. But it's to support free SHS. Anyway, let me not get into that. Yeah, I get the point. Yeah, I get the point. But that tells us we need to know something about debt. It should explain to us the country's debt service obligations for the rest of the year. In fact, let us even know the impact of debt payments on social and capital expenditure. How is that going to affect money that would have been allocated to certain crucial expenditure items or services? We need to know. And the measures the government is taking to prevent debt servicing from crowding out development spending. My last but one expectation, I expect strong assurances on fiscal discipline. The recent decision by the Bank of Ghana to maintain the monetary policy rate at 14% shows that inflationary and exchange rate risks still exist.
Yeah.
So you see, it's now the turn of the minister responsible for finance to, as it were, avoid excessive spending, unplanned borrowing, and the accumulation of new arrears. Why do I say so? Because they will go back and hurt the things that the Bank of Ghana governor is trying to avoid. Finally, that's why I said last but one, because this one, if I don't say it, I will not sleep well in the night. I don't expect surprise taxes. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, you're not worried I didn't say anything about taxes.
Well,
I don't.
I was actually going to ask you that because, I don't know. I don't know if you think that, our revenue collection has been very, very good because the minority in Parliament actually raised certain concerns. I know that we're not doing politics. We just want to bring to bear the issues that are at hand. And one of the things that they're saying is that it's not that government has been able to raise enough revenue. What they've done is that they've cut spending. And so it might appear as if, government has enough in there. But the reality is that they are not, generating revenue. What they are doing is that they've cut down expenditure, and that is actually making their numbers look quite good. Yeah. So I was actually going to ask you, do you think that, we need to do something in relation to taxes, or everything is okay?
I don't expect to be surprised. Don't expect, maybe let's not expect surprise taxes unless government provides a very strong justification. What are my expectations? I think if there's going to be anything on taxes, what I do expect is that there should be an emphasis on improving tax compliance. Number one, improving tax compliance. Number two, reducing any revenue leakages within the system. Number three, broadening the tax base. In fact, number four, reviewing any exemptions. And perhaps number five, ensuring that those already paying taxes are not overburdened. Which has been the biggest issue we've had in this country. It's a big threat. The faithful few is always where we put all our attention instead of broadening the base so that some of Bonnie and the others can all start paying taxes. Very well. We are burdening the faithful few. Nitrebi has to be paying taxes. All the burden is on us. And we don't expect the government to keep burdening us. So my expectation is that the review will make overall, a transition from macroeconomic stabilization to real economic transformation. The economy may be showing signs of improvement, but the success of the review will depend on whether those gains are translated into jobs, into affordable credit, into low, business costs and improved public services, and so on and so on. In the end, it's better living standards and conditions that we want for every single Ghanaian. So the key question is no longer whether the economic indicators are improving. Enough of the numbers. That's what I mean. The point rather is whether ordinary Ghanaians and businesses are beginning to see and feel improvements in their lives. See on others, feel on themselves. Until that is met, the numbers may not really matter to anyone.
All right, Ima, I think that time is up and we have to go now. I don't know if you have any final things to say. If not, I think we'll go and monitor what exactly will come out from the session, from the presentation today. And then hopefully we can have further conversations in subsequent, hopefully tomorrow.
All right, I have a few words for the minister.
Okay.
The Honorable Minister for Finance, the Honorable Kisela Forson, Ghanaians by far appreciate the progress that has been made in restoring macroeconomic stability. The next challenge, in my considered view and professional opinion, is to ensure that these gains are reflected in lower borrowing costs, more jobs for the people, improved public services, and a lower cost of living. Dear Minister, the success of this budget review will ultimately be judged not by the numbers on paper, and that will be read by you to the rest of the Ghanaian people. The success of the budget review will, however, be judged by the impact on the lives of ordinary Ghanaians. And dear Minister, I want you to pay close attention to that. We want a Ghana where stable inflation translates into affordable food. A stable CD translates into affordable, or cheaper imports. Fiscal discipline translates into quality public services, and economic growth translates into decent jobs. The next phase must be about improving macroeconomic realities. And dear Honorable Minister, that is the true measure of success. And each of it, that's my message to the Minister.
All right. All right.
Try and send
thank
it to
you.
him.
Anyway, thank you very much for your time and thanks for sharing your expectations with us. We'll monitor, and then, like I said, we'll have other conversations subsequently. But I'm really grateful that you made time to join me.
You're welcome.
All right. Please do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So that was Emmanuel Boateng, our in-house economic analyst, and he joined me this morning. We spoke about the budget review that will be presented today, and also the monetary policy decision. If you miss any part of the conversation, you can head straight to our YouTube channel, ZED Multimedia on YouTube, and you can get to play back this particular conversation. Yes, but that will be all for our market trend segment. We're going to get into our roundtable discussion. Like I told you today, we're talking about lifestyle inflation. Yes, if you're curious about what that is, I think that you should stick and stay, and then we'll get into all of that, and then you can get some good knowledge on how to be able to deal with that. And so please don't go anywhere, stick and stay. Enjoy this spot of music, and we'll be right back.
breakfast on Z101.9 FM.
You're tuned in to ZED 101.9 FM. Lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
Well, exactly 11 minutes after 9. This is the Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM with me, Trevi Hammond Sika Pumfaneho by Lord Kenya. Very good music. I enjoy the song so much, and I'm sure you're enjoying it too. All right. Anyway, but we're getting to our roundtable discussion for today. And of course, we're talking about Sika, we're talking about money, we're talking about lifestyle inflation. Now, for many people, I mean, of course, we all dream of earning more money. Everybody wants to earn a lot more. You know, a better job, a bigger business, a promotion, or a new opportunity often comes with, you know, the expectation that life will become easier. But for many people, as the income increases, expenses also increase. The bigger house, the newer car, the more frequent outings, the expensive subscriptions, and the pressure, you know, to, you know, maintain a certain lifestyle. All of these things can quietly consume the extra income. And so that is something that financial experts talk about a lot. And so this morning we're looking at that. Our topic for the roundtable is the lifestyle inflation trap. Why more income doesn't always mean more wealth. And we'll discuss why this happens, how social pressures influence your financial decisions, and how we can enjoy the rewards of our hard work while still building long-term financial security. My guest joins me over the phone lines. His name is Eric Boateng Siao, and he is the Deputy Managing Partner at Nexus BI, and he joins me over the phone lines for this conversation this morning. Eric, good morning. Hello, Eric.
Yeah, good morning, Hammond.
Yes, how are you doing, my brother?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. How are you?
Fantastic, I'm doing well too. Thanks so much for making time to join us this morning.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, so let's get into our conversation. So for starters, let's start with the basics. I mean, people have heard the phrase lifestyle inflation and all of that. What exactly are we talking about when we mention lifestyle inflation?
Well, let me take it from this angle. When we say lifestyle inflation, the word inflation itself, I mean, in the economic, the fullest sense of the economic term inflation, is a persistent increase in prices. Now, when we are relating it to lifestyle, we can still use the same language where we say persistent increase in the kind of lifestyle you want to live. This term, lifestyle inflation, actually means at every point in time where you have an increase or you have a rise in your income, your disposable income, you tend to match it up with an increase in expenses to get a certain status for yourself. Like you want to live a certain kind of life. So anytime there is an increase in your income, your disposable income, you try to match up that income with an additional expense, or even increasing the kind of spending you do regularly, just to show that, I mean, if you've moved ahead, I mean, you're going a step up. Yeah, so basically that is lifestyle inflation.
Let's still try to understand it. I like the way you've put it now, but can you give like a typical example where somebody has inflated their lifestyle?
Yeah, so a typical